Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back to my classroom. I am Mrs. Armstrong, and I teach elementary art at Sequoyah School in Claremore, Oklahoma. Today, I'm going to introduce you to an artist. He's also an illustrator, and I'm going to give you a clue of who he has created. Who do you think? Pete the Cat. His name is James Dean, and he created Pete the Cat in 1999. Now I'm going to take off these silly glasses because I can't see through them. In 2008, there was a man by the name of Eric Litwin, and Eric Litwin wrote a song about Pete the Cat. So James Dean partnered up with Eric, and they wrote the book, and James Dean illustrated the book, Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes. So I'm going to be reading this to you today, and this is our inspiration for our art project that we're going to draw and color a little later. All right, so before we get started on reading and drawing, I have a color experiment that I want to get started, because it takes a little while to get it going. So I'm going to set this up about right here. This is called Walking Water. And for this experiment, you need 6 clear cups. You need some water. You need 6 strips of paper towels. I cut them like this. Move the picture. Okay. Stir sticks and the 3 primary colors of food coloring. Let me pour the rest of this water so I can move this pitcher out of the way. And okay, so in my 6 cups, I have them filled about 3/4 to the top. I've got them touching side by side. And I'm going to add the primary, we're only using 3 colors. So I am going to use yellow, put some yellow in, nice and yellow. I know it looks orange, but it's yellow. And then I'm going to skip a cup, kind of looks like the color wheel. I'm going to put blue in this one. And then red. And this one. I've got a stir stick for each one, so we don't mix the colors. And then what we're going to do to get our water to walk, I'm going to add a strip of paper towel from the blue to the clear, from the clear to the red, from the red to the yellow, from the red to the clear, from the clear to the yellow, from the yellow to the clear, and from the clear to the blue. Now, we studied the color wheel a little bit last week, and the primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. Now, the ones in between that are clear, if the blue walks the paper towel to the clear and the red walks the paper towel to the clear in this direction, what color should it change that water? And it should be purple or violet, however you want to call that. And then red and yellow will walk into this cup and make orange. Blue and yellow will walk into this cup and make green. And you can tell, I don't know if you can see it, but it's already walking. It just has to make that little turn in the cup. So we'll come back to that in just a little while, and we will check it out. All right, let's get back to our story. Pete the Cat. It's illustrated by James Dean. Now, James Dean partnered with Eric for just a couple of years. They wrote a couple of books together. They wrote this one, Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes, and Pete the Cat, I Love My School Shoes. Around 2011, James Dean, his wife is also an artist. Her name is Kimberly. And they joined together and started writing the rest of the Pete the Cat books and illustrating them. And now together they have over 60 Pete the Cat books. They live in Savannah, Georgia with their 5 cats, and they have a pug named Emma. All right, let's get started on Pete the Cat. I do have to have my reading glasses on for this, and I want to have Pete nearby. Put him sitting over here. Let's see how we can set him. We'll just lean him right here. Well, I don't think he's going to stand. So, and I've got my phone here because it's going to help me with singing the song a little bit. We'll see how it goes. All right, Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes. Art by James Dean. Story by Eric Litwin. And this is actually written as a song. And if you get on YouTube and you watch some of them read it and animate it, it's really cute. All right, here we go. Is that good? All right. Pete the Cat was walking down the street in his brand new white shoes. Pete loved his white shoes so much, he sang this song. Let me see if I can get this up here so that you can hear the song, and I want you to sing it with me. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. Love my white shoes. Love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. All right, we'll see how that turns out. Oh no, Pete stepped in a large pile of strawberries. What color did it turn his shoes? Make a guess. Red. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. My red shoes. I love 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 my red shoes. Whoops. All right. Oh, no. Pete stepped in a large pile of blueberries. What color did it turn his shoes? Blue. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Okay, I want you guys to get up and sing with me on this one. I love my blue shoes. 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 It always stops right at the end of that one. All right. Oh, no. Pete stepped in a large puddle of mud. What color did it turn his shoes? Look at the picture. Make a guess. Brown. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Okay, get up and get ready to sing. My brown shoes. I love 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 my brown shoes. All right, he's drinking his morning coffee. Kind of looks like me in the mornings. Oh, no. Pete stepped in a bucket of water. All the brown, all the blue, and all the red were washed away. What color were his shoes again? White. But now they were wet. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. He kept walking along and singing his song. My wet shoes, I love my wet shoes. 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 I'm not a singer, but we tried. The moral of Pete's story is, no matter what you step in, because it's all good. The end. What I love about Pete in this story is that he's always content. No matter what happens, what kind of a day he's having, he finds something that's going to make him happy. So this one has a really good moral to the story. All right, so let's check on our walking water, see if anything's happening over here. I'm going to move it up a little bit. Get some stuff out of the way. We've got Pete going over here. He might hang up here, I don't know. Probably not, he'll fall, but we'll get him right there. All right, it is starting to walk. I can see the yellow turning the corner. Hopefully you can see the blue. Get up here a little bit. The blue has turned the corner. If this doesn't happen before time is up today, I'll leave it here, and then next week I'll pull it over here and we'll see what's happened with those other colors. But this is something that you can do at home. We might need more than the 25 minutes that we have today. So I did it at home. I didn't time it, but it did work. Most of the colors were made pretty well. Purple's always the hardest one to get to really look purple. So we'll check on it again in a little while. Let's get started drawing. All right, so we are going to draw Pete the cat. Try to keep it about right here. Yes, I can. Here, I'll blacken it out right there. I'm going to turn it back on, though, here in a little while. So, all right, so is that good right there? All right, now I am drawing with the marker. You are needing probably to draw with a pencil today. So if you make a mistake, you can erase. Remember, don't draw real dark. Any kind of paper will work. If you've got notebook paper, if you've got copy paper. Today we're going landscape. So turn your paper sideways like this. And we will get started with Pete the cat. All right, we're going to start on his head. And we're going to draw his face first. And he's kind of a funny looking cat. He's not like a typical looking cat. So we've got a certain way we're going to draw him today. So let's kind of start with the sides of his face. Ah, there went Pete. We're going to go down on this side and down on this side. That's going to be the side of his face. His hand kind of comes in a little bit at a point. So I'm going to kind of come that way. Meet here in the middle. Now the top of those lines has created his ears. So we're going to pull in his ear right there. And maybe I'm going to try to get it even. Kind of come up this way. And then the top of his head. And Pete the cat has these very oval football shaped eyes. And they're kind of low on his head. So we're going to get those drawn in. I'm going to try to just use the tip. Didn't write very good. Do that again. Okay. And the other eye, think of it like a football. Kind of getting it in there. And then his nose is a triangle shape. Flat on the top. And then his eyes have almost like a triangle shape here in the middle. Coming in. And we'll leave the center white. And I'm going to switch over to this other marker. That one's already not looking really good. Let's put some whiskers on. He has lots of whiskers that kind of stick out. However many you want to draw on there. All right, so now let's draw his body. That's his head. And we'll put his neck on. This marker's a little bit more narrow, but it'll work. It's nice and bright. All right, so now his back. His back is pretty long, so we're just going to kind of curve it a little bit and bring it over. Maybe about right there. His tail, he has a curly tail. If you can see his little curly tail. So let's bring this up and circle over. And then I like to just start back on this point. Come back down, and we'll stop about right there. Let's go back over to his front legs. So his front legs basically just come straight down, and it meets his shoe. So I'm going to just bring this down, stop about right there. The inside, I'm going to go up and around to his other leg. Draw one of his shoes on. It's like a high top, kind of looks like a high top Converse. He has the little sole on the bottom. He's got the little toe area. And then where the tongue is at in your shoe. Now he has drawn laces. I'm just going to do something a little bit more simple than the laces. I'm just going to draw some little lines. That kind of gives you an idea how to draw the shoe, because we're going to do the same shoe on every foot, of course. All right, so here's this leg. I'm going to take this leg up and stop about right there. Again, this shoe this time is going to be turned the opposite direction. So draw that other high top Converse looking shoe. The little toe area, the tongue, and the laces. Now if you want to put a tie on yours, you can. I don't think his, yeah, it shows a little bit of a shoelace at the top, a little bow. We can add that in. All right, so now his belly. His belly, let's just take over about this far. We may bring it over further. Let's see how far the back's going to go. So let's start here at the end of his tail. And let's draw this back leg. And I probably want that back leg about as far as this leg. So kind of match it up going across and then down. Let's draw this shoe. This shoe is going to be facing like this one. So it's going to be going towards the left. So again, draw on like a high top tennis shoe. Put the laces on. And then we're going to do the last leg. This is just going to go straight across and down. He's got little skinny legs. And let's add his shoe. There we go. And the laces. He's pretty easy. He's not too bad. So that's basically what Pete the Cat looks like. We can always add stuff to your picture. On the one that I did as the example, I put him where he's like walking down the road. So if you want to add a road to your picture, might just do like a horizon line going across. I put a sign, like a street sign. If you want to add a street sign, that in one of his books, he's got an area that's called the cool zone. So if you want to do like a little street sign and write cool zone. And if you want to write Pete the cat at the top and title your picture, Pete the cat. And one of his sayings is, it's all good. So I kind of did a little speech bubble over here and wrote, it's all good. No matter what happens, find a way to be happy. And it's all good. All right, crayons. Pete the cat is blue, but if you want to color yours a different color, that's okay. His eyes are kind of an orangey gold color in the background. And you can color his shoes any color you want to color. I did one for each color that he kind of stepped in today. So one of them, of course, is white. One of them is blue. I'm going to use the regular blue for his body. So I'm going to pick one of the other shades of blue for his shoe, just so it's a little bit different of a color. So I'm going to get one of his shoes done. Only 5 minutes left already. This goes by so fast. So I'm going to get some of his shoes done so that you can get those colored correctly, and then you can always color Pete the cat his other colors. So let's do one of his shoes. He stepped in. Now, remember, he stepped in the blueberries on this one. And then he stepped in the mud. Or one of the times he stepped in the mud. I don't think I have these in any order. So I'll get this one brown. And then he stepped in the strawberries. So let's get this one red. And when you're done, if you have a black marker, you could go back and trace everything. That way it kind of makes your colors stand out some. And then, of course, he's blue. Let me color in his eyes so that we can get that taken care of. I think I'm going to use the yellow-orange. So it's not too orange, but yellow is usually not dark enough. So I'm using yellow and yellow-orange on his eyes. And then regular blue is what I'm going to use on his fur. I'm just going to color a little bit of him. You guys can finish this at home. And remember, I have a Facebook page that you can send these to. If your parents or guardians are not hooked up on Facebook, you can always go to the school website, sequoiaheagles.net, and you can get my email address. I did have some send it to my email last week on the Monet, and so that works also. So just kind of color him blue. You can finish some of your background. You can color in your cool zone. If you want to make a speech bubble, it's all good. This is kind of the finished product, what it looks like. Mr. Trujillo, will you turn back on that smart board while I'm doing this? All right, so I'm gonna let you finish that. Let's look again at our walking colors. It's still taking a little bit of time to get that red in. It's going, so I'm going to leave this here for next week. We'll come in and we'll look at that again. And I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of Sequoyah students that sent me some pictures last week. and I ended up turning it into a contest. Their ribbons are in the mail. I ended up getting their address and sending them their first, second, third place ribbons. A shout out to D'Artagnan. She is a second grader here at Sequoyah. And then Briley is also a second grader. She ended up doing one with paint and crayons. And then we got Sarah that is in third grade, and she's kind of hiding behind her picture. I have a feeling that she may have still been in her pajamas or something, because I know when I got home and my grandson sent me his picture, he was still in his pajamas. But that's okay. We'll take those pictures any way that you can send them. And here is the link again to my Facebook page. Look under Mrs. Armstrong's art class, Sequoyah Elementary, Claremore, Oklahoma. And again, if you don't have Facebook, go to the school website, find my email address, and you can send it that way. So that way it will work. And I've enjoyed doing the art lesson with you today. I will be back next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to introduce another artist next week. So I'll be dressed up, and you'll have to guess again who I am. So thank you.
Good morning, Sequoyah Elementary friends. Mrs. Woodson here, coming to you to share a little library lesson with you in your living room. I have a shout out I want to do this morning to Diana. I want to wish her a very, very happy birthday today. That's kind of a special thing that, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't today. It was yesterday, I've been told. So happy birthday yesterday, Diana. What I'm going to share with you this morning are just some things that we would be doing in the elementary library during this time of the year. And one little lesson that I would do when the kids come in is we would talk about finding out just how old a book is. And we do that by finding this little symbol. Can you see this, Mr. Trujillo? Okay, good. This little symbol is a C with a circle around it. That's the copyright symbol. And right next to the copyright symbol on the back of the title page in a book is the year the book was made. I tell my students the birthday of the book. So we're always looking for the birthday of the book. And in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about this book here, Where the Sidewalk Ends. And then I'm also going to read a book to you today called Dog Coo by Andrew Clements. Two separate authors, but we're going to read these in honor of National Poetry Month. Back to copyright. HarperCollins is the publishing company that does for Shel Silverstein and his books, and they give us permission to read these books out loud. All teachers across our state, across the nation, have permission to share books virtually through television. It's really nice of them to let us share those. And Simon Schuster is the publishing company that publishes Andrew Clements' Dog Coo book, and they too give us permission to do that. So back to copyright. When I look on this one here, Where the Sidewalk Ends, on the title page, this isn't quite the title page. I'm going to go one more, and I look for this circle with the C. Well, let's get it together. And I find that this book was written in 1974. So I'm going to write out 1974. That's the year. This is the year we're in. So this is what we do in the library to figure out how old the book is. We use the birthday of the book by that symbol, copyright, and we subtract it from the year that we're currently in. That's how we find out how old it is. Now we talk about why is it important to know that? Well, in a fiction story or in a poetry book, it doesn't matter how old it is, because a good book is a good book, a good story. But when we're talking about nonfiction, that means the author's written it for the purpose to inform us, to give us great information. We need to make sure that the information that we're reading isn't outdated. For example, outer space books. Pluto was once a planet, and now it's not. I'm not sure what the status right now is of Pluto, because it has changed around. We want to make sure our information is current when we're talking about things in science and the mathematics and technology. Let's find out how old Where the Sidewalk Ends is. So we have place value, and what we tell our kids is, or what I tell them is, I do old school math. I don't know about new math. So we have thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. And I just cover up, and I take 0 minus 4. And we all know that you cannot take 4 from 0. So I have to borrow 1 here and make that a 1. Oh, my marker's not working. Here it goes. When I borrow 1, take it over here, that makes this not 1, but it makes it 10. Now, 10 minus 4 equals 6. 1 minus 7, because now I'm going to move over into the tens place. And I'm not going to worry about these, and I'm not going to worry about this, because I've already figured out this number. 1 minus 7, I can't do that either, because you can't take 7 away from 1. So, I can't borrow from the 0. I have to go all the way out to the thousands place, make that a 1, and I make this a 10. Now I can borrow 1 from the 10. Make that a 9. I make this an 11. 11 minus 7 is 4. 9 minus 9 is 0, right? 1 minus 1 is 0. Shel Silverstein's book, Where the Sidewalk Ends, is 46 years old. What's great about these books by Shel Silverstein, let's see if his picture's on the back of this. Yep, here's the picture of the author. These books are chock full of poetry. And the reason that's a big deal is because, I don't know if you know this or not, but April is National Poetry Month. And so I brought several of his books that these aren't the only kinds of books he's written, but Shel Silverstein is famous for the funny and silly and humorous poems that he writes for children. And what he does on the inside, they're pretty thick books when you think about a book. Looks like a pretty good chapter book, right? But that's not what it is. When you open it up and you start going through his books, there's a poem on each page in a little ink, black and white drawing that he's illustrated each one of his poems. So you can flip to the middle, you can flip to the back, you can read a poem or two, and the illustration helps you use your imagination to enjoy his works of poetry. I'm going to read one to you today, and the one I'm going to read to you today is from Where the Sidewalk Ends. It's about being 1 inch tall. I don't know if you've ever thought about being 1 inch tall. And I meant to grab a ruler, but I can use this pen cap lid, because if I'm thinking about a ruler and being 1 inch tall, that's about the height of this cap, this pen cap. That means your whole body would have to squeeze in to fit head and your feet in here. Can you imagine being 1 inch tall? That's what I love about poetry. I love that because it causes us to stretch our imagination to it. 1 inch tall. If you were only 1 inch tall, you'd ride a worm to school. The teardrop of a crying ant would be your swimming pool. A crumb of cake would be a feast and last you 7 days at least. A flea would be a frightening beast if you were 1 inch tall. If you were only 1 inch tall, you'd walk beneath the door, and it would take a month to get down to the store. A bit of fluff would be your bed. You'd swing upon a spider's thread and wear a thimble on your head if you were 1 inch tall. You'd surf across the kitchen sink upon a stick of gum. You couldn't hug your mama. You'd have to hug her thumb. To move a pen would take all night. This poem took 14 years to write because I'm just 1 inch tall. Did that help you use your imagination? And can you imagine? You know what a thimble is? It's that metal thing that your mom or a seamstress or a sewing person puts on their thumb to shove the needle through the fabric that's really thick so it doesn't hurt their thumb. It's a little metal cap. Can you imagine wearing that because that was your hat? I liked having cake for 7 days at least. I love how it uses your imagination. Take a look at this little ink drawing. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know, Mr. Trujillo, if they can see it or not. But here he is, riding a worm to school. That's what he chose to ride to school. If you were 1 inch tall, I don't know what you would choose to ride to school. Maybe a mouse? I don't know. Because you would be very, very short. And the options would really open up for you. Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. Now take a look here. This isn't the only book he's written. He's written tons of others. And as I go through, let me just show you a couple more. That's one poem. When I flip, I didn't do that. Look at that. It's beautiful. The drawing matches the poem. It goes with. So each one of these little poems takes you on a journey in your imagination. Some of them are silly. Some of them are funny. Some of them are serious. Where the Sidewalk Ends. There are many others here that he's done. He's done Runny Babbitt, Falling Up. Here's a picture of Shel Silverstein on the back. Everything on It by Shel Silverstein, and A Light in the Attic. If you get a chance, I encourage you to get your eyes on one of these this month sometime. We don't have that much time left in this month, Get your eyes on one of those and see if you can read a few poems from that book. I think you'll enjoy it. I have another story I want to share with you today. It's by a different author. His name is Andrew Clements. Now, this story is a fiction story. The author, Andrew Clements, had his friend Tim Bowers help him do the book because Tim Bowers is the illustrator. He did the artwork. Tim Bowers drew the dog. He drew all the pictures in the story, and Andrew Clements just wrote the words. This has a beginning, a middle, and an end. This is the main character. Isn't he cute? I'll scoot up so you can see him. Isn't he cute? He has a problem. Can you imagine and think about what his problem could be? The title of the book is Dog Coo. Let's read and find out what this little puppy's problem is. I think you're going to enjoy it. I think you're even going to be more surprised at what Andrew Clements does in this book titled Dog Coo. Andrew Clements, Dog Coo, illustrated by Tim Bowers. Here he comes. It's getting dark outside, and he's in the neighborhood without a leash or a collar. Wonder where he's going. Let's find out. There on the back steps, the eyes of a hungry dog. Will she shut the door? Oh, here is the other side. Oh, look. The gate is open. He's peeking in. I wonder if he smells food. The first food, then a bath. The food was a lot more fun. Still, it all feels good. She gets the bath too. Wonder if she wants it or not. Morning brings children, hugs, licks, barking and laughing, warmer than sunshine. He's very excited. I don't think Dad is quite sure on his way to work. A dog needs a name. Rags, Mutt, Pooch. No, not Rover. Mooch, yes, Mooch. Perfect. He's getting all ready. This guy's got a pain. It's loud, fast, and crazy. Food, coats, then the front door slams. Mooch hates the school bus. First, arf, arf, then woof. Soon, arf, arf, then woof, woof, woof. Mooch has nice neighbors. There's a fence between. They can hear each other. Nose out the window, ears flapping, hair pushed straight back. Adventures and smell. He's smiling. He's smiling because he smells hot dogs. The house is quiet. No kids, no mom, and no food. What's a dog to do? Chew on dirty socks, roll around in week old trash. Ah, that's much better. Oh no, this is the icky kind of trash. Not just the paper trash, but the food trash. You know, the kind that has the coffee grinds in it and the icky banana peelings. And he didn't just chew on the socks. Look what he's done. He's ripped a hole in them. I don't know if that's part of this nice shirt here. He's torn this apart. I hope those aren't someone's special dress socks. Here comes Mom. Squirrel sits in tree. Mooch sits below, looking up. Who has more patience? She's put him out, and she's in here cleaning up. Can you see that? Sun all morning long, a deep, cool drink of water, shade all afternoon. Scratch, sniff, eat, yawn, nap, dreams of rabbit and running. Could life be sweeter? The sound of children. That's what was missing all day. Mooch loves the family meeting. There are words and words and words. Did someone say pound? Dad puts on his coat, and then the sound of a car. It doesn't look good. Oh, I hope he gets to stay. It's the car again, and then footsteps at the door. Will this be goodbye? A new doggy bed. Food, a bowl, a squeaky toy. Mooch has found his home. Yay, Dad. He came through. He didn't take him to the pound. They're all happy. And Mooch has his new home. And I think they decided to give him those socks he tore up. I love that. This has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Poor Mooch. Did you figure out what his problem was? He was a stray dog. He didn't have a home. And he solved his problem by this family taking him in and keeping him. Now, it looked like there for a minute that he may not get to stay because of his stray dog ways and his bad behavior, because he hasn't quite learned how to live in a house just yet. But they decided to keep him. I love what Andrew Clements did in this story, Dog Coo. Because you're not going to believe that every one of these pages in this book is actually a form of poetry. So in honor of National Poetry Month, I decided to take a look at Dog Coo and show you all. Let me grab my little paper back here that's taped. This kind of poetry we just read by Andrew Clements is called a haiku. A haiku is a traditional form of Japanese poetry. Most haikus are written about nature. A haiku has 3 lines. The first line has 7 syllables. The second line has 5. The first line has 5 syllables. The second line has 7. And the last line has 5 syllables. Haikus do not need to rhyme, but they do have to fit in that neat little word container of that 575. Now, do you know what a syllable is? A syllable are the phonetic groups of sounds that words make when they're put together, like Oklahoma. You can put your hand under your chin and count the syllables in Oklahoma. Oklahoma has 4 syllables. Now, that could go in the top line, but we would have to add another syllable to make Oklahoma be in the top line of a haiku. Take a look at what Andrew Clements did here. Is it better up there, Mr. Trujillo, or back here? Okay, I'm going to come up there then so they can see. One of the things in the story that was super, super scary was when Mooch got into the trash. He was bored, like we've all been kind of lately. He was bored and he got into the trash and he did this. It says, chew on dirty socks. Remember that? Roll around in weak old trash. Oh, the bad trash. Mm-hmm. And then it says, that's much better. Well, what Andrew Clements did on every single page I checked, I went back through and looked for 3 lines on every page in his story. There are 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, and 5 syllables in that last line. He stuck the whole story in neat little containers on every page, that haiku container of 575. Look right here. Chew on dirty socks. 5. This has got to have 7 to be a haiku. Roll around in week old trash. 7. Do you think it has 5? Let's see. Ah, that's much better. 5. He does that in the whole story. So you might have been wondering, if you hadn't heard this story before, why would Andrew Clements name this book Dog Coo? Well, he named it Dog Coo because he wrote the whole story in the format of a haiku. Don't you love that? I absolutely and totally love that. I checked every page in that book, and I can just go back and show you. I showed you that one, but let's just look and make sure. I think it is amazing how he did that. Can you see the 3 lines? And that's a 575. If we were to go back and do that, it would be 575. Next page, 3 lines. 575. Next line. 3 lines. How clever of him to do that for us and create this cute little character named Mooch, who had a real fiction character problem of not having a real home. And I love how the family takes him anyway when he's naughty. I wrote my own haiku. I think you could do that too. Let me just flip this around here. I like being close to you all so you all can see me. Do you want to check to see if mine is 575? Let's look and see. What season are we in right now? We're in the season of spring. So I wrote this one. Butterfly flying. Honeybees collect nectar. Flowers bloom in spring. Let's check to see if it's 575. Butterfly, butterfly, flying. That's 5. 5. Honeybee, collect nectar. 7. Flowers bloom in spring. 5. I wonder if you thought about getting out a piece of paper, I don't care what kind of paper, and you just wrote out the number out to the side, 5, 7 underneath the 5, and then a 5. And then out to the side of that 5, you come up with your own haiku in honor of National Poetry Month. I would love to see those. I would love for you to share those with us on our, you could share them with your school or your teacher's webpage. I know that she has them. Let me see if I've got my little book talk page. You could share them on here too. Sequoyah Elementary Book Talks. You could put your haikus on there or share them with your teachers on their web pages. They would love to see your haikus for National Poetry Month. I know that they like for you all to get inside your head and be creative, and then also think about words and how they're put together and how you can think about the syllables in a word. And then constructing that causes you to think critically. It's a really great tool for you to do. It's a really great thing for you to do. And you know what else I would do? I would take some of my artistic abilities, which I have to watch Mrs. Armstrong here at Sequoyah do that because she's really good at drawing. But you could go out to the side and you could illustrate your haiku with whatever it is that you decide to write about. Sequoyah Elementary Book Talks. 2 more minutes. How about we read another poem from Shel Silverstein? Does that sound good? A couple more minutes left. That went a lot faster than I thought. Didn't time myself as much. Let me see. I think it was in this one. Let's read one more of his. I don't know if you have a brother or sister like this. If you haven't seen me read this one, I like this artwork that he did in this one. Stack of pancakes. My sister and I, we have 6 sisters in my family. When we make pancakes, there is a stack of them. They're this tall. And then all of our kids get in the room. Ooh, talk about a stack of pancakes. Pancakes. Who wants a pancake? Sweet and piping hot. Good little Grace looks up and says, I'll take the one on top. Who else wants a pancake, fresh off the griddle? Terrible Teresa smiles and says, I'll take the one in the middle. Oh, why does she want this one? I know why. Because she's just like my nephew Davin. She wants to see the whole stack fall down. She wants to see it fall. Oh, here's one more. Colors. We have 1 minute. Colors. My skin is kind of sort of brownish, pinkish, yellowish white. My eyes are grayish, bluish green. I'm told they look orange in the night. My hair is reddish, blondish brown, and it's silver when it's wet. And all the colors I am inside have not been invented yet. Shel Silverstein, Where the Sidewalk Ends. I hope you'll take a chance to see if you can locate these books. You might have them laying around the house. I don't know. There are places online where you can access these actually for free right now. I hope you'll read some poetry, and I really look forward to possibly seeing some wonderfully written haikus, 575, in that neat little word container written by you, our Sequoyah Elementary students. I enjoyed spending time with you today. I can't wait to see you till next Tuesday. We'll bring a little more library into your living room. Bye-bye.
Good morning. I'm Mrs. Owens, back with you again this week. Not in my classroom today. I borrowed Mrs. Armstrong's classroom, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about a variety of things today. I was just kind of wondering about my class and thinking about my students, and I kind of miss my kiddos. And I thought back to an old TV show that I used to watch called The Brady Bunch. Has anybody ever seen The Brady Bunch? It looks like The Brady Bunch is having a Zoom meeting to me. I think that's funny. It looks like the Zoom meetings that I've had with my kids on Gallery View. But anyway, one of the characters in the old sitcom Brady Bunch that ran in the early 70s was a man by the name of Michael Brady. This is Michael Brady. Michael Brady is an architect. Now, you may or may not know what an architect is. Well, look at his desk and look for clues. I looked for a better picture. I wasn't really able to find one that gave us a good indication of the things on his desk, but you'll notice he has a desk lamp, and at the bottom of his desk, sitting on top of his desk, he's got several drawing utensils, and it looks like he might have some measuring tools. So those would be the tools of an architect. And you might say, okay, that doesn't really help me that much. What is an architect? So I looked up a definition. An architect is a person who plans, designs, and oversees construction of buildings. They might do one of those or they might do all of those. But they're the person who has the idea. They have the dream, and then they draw the plans. If you've just recently moved into a new home, your home started with somebody's idea, and they may have drawn what we call blueprints, and that's what Michael Brady did. Well, our story today is going to be about an architect, and his name is Iggy Peck. Let me show you Iggy Peck, Architect. This book was written by a lady by the name of Andrea Beatty. And Andrea Beatty has written a series of these books that are really kind of fun. So if you like Iggy Peck Architect, you might look up some other Andrea Beatty books. Or excuse me, Andrea Beatty. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2, when he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. Good gracious, Ignatius. Oh, has your mother ever used your full name? Usually my mom said my full name instead of my shortened name if she was trying to get my attention. So his mom called him Ignatius. His mother exclaimed, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." But her smile faded fast as a light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. Ooh, can you imagine? "Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks. Ooh." Have you figured out what style the writer is using to tell the story? Here are some clues. She said he had been an architect since he was 2, and he used nothing but diapers and glue. And then she said, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen," and she realized those diapers weren't clean. So what is the author using here? You're right. The author is using rhyme and to tell the story, which makes it fun. They're fun to read and they're fun to listen to. Can you think of another very familiar author that oftentimes writes in rhyme? When I think of this, I always think of Dr. Seuss and all of his books written in rhyme. I think that's cool. Look at Mom's face. Can you see her? That look of, ugh, stinky diaper. But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. Now, let's go back and talk about those rhyming words again. Now, in this one, it says, Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn. Do not be confused with rhyming words or misled by thinking they always look alike. Because look at these two words. Lawn, gone. Say the words. Say lawn, gone. Do they rhyme? Yeah, they do. But look, they're not spelled the same. They're not in a family of words that all spell the same, like hat and cat, that. But they still rhyme because they have that same vowel sound and that same ending sound. So don't ever be confused about that when you're thinking about rhyming words. Now, it says that Iggy built a sphinx. Are you familiar with that? That's a really, really, really cool landmark. Let me give you a bigger picture of a sphinx. Take a look at that. That is the Great Sphinx of Giza. It's in Egypt. It was built over 4,000 years ago. Do you think somebody had to come up with a plan for that? Oh, absolutely. Now, I'm sure it didn't look anything at all like Michael Brady might have drawn the picture, but there was some thinking that was done before this was sculpted out of limestone. This was built to commemorate or to honor a pharaoh. His name was Khafre, and the body of the Sphinx is a recumbent lion. It's a lion laying down, and the head was that to resemble the pharaoh. The head of it was to resemble the pharaoh. Ugh. It looks like it's been damaged a little bit over the 4,000 years. But what a cool landmark. I wonder if any of my friends out there have ever been to Egypt and possibly even seen what a phenomenal landmark. I don't know. Well, if you'll notice Iggy's, it's a pretty good likeness of that Sphinx. But I want you to get a load of Mom and Dad over here. They're doing their sunbathing outside that day, and they have dirt clods all over them. I think that's funny. Iggy's just out there working, having a great time. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples and temples from modeling clay. So he used whatever materials were available. The Sphinx was built out of dirt clods, and in the house he used all their apples and all of their peaches and modeling clay. Look at Mom and Dad. They must be going somewhere fancy. She's in a long dress and looks like he's in a tuxedo. They must have been pretty proud of Iggy. Oh my goodness. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie. Look at that. Now, you guys are probably pretty familiar with an arch. Maybe the McDonald's double golden arches. I bet you've seen those before. But Iggy wasn't building that. Big Iggy was building the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. Take a look at that. How beautiful is that landmark? In St. Louis, Missouri, that is the Gateway Arch. And it was built to commemorate the westward expansion in the United States. Built about 1967, and it's the tallest national monument, America's tallest national monument. And if you go up in it, I've seen it before. I've been there, but I haven't actually visited the site where the arch is. But you can actually go up in that. And at the very top, they have windows. And it says if you get to the very top, you can look out and you can see 30 miles on either side of this beautiful city. So that was a pretty cool thing. I did a little bit more research. You might want to do some on your own about this. It's a pretty cool thing. It's kind of it's an interesting thing to look at. And that's not too far from us in St. Louis, Missouri. So Iggy built that too. Iggy must have had a good background of things. Oh, life is beginning to change for Iggy, though. Now it says Dear Ig had made it to 2nd grade. Ooh, he's in 2nd grade. When his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. On the very first day, she had this to say: "We do not talk of buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new." She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. Now, here's Miss Greer, and she's throwing away all of the architecture books in the classroom. Here are all of the 2nd grade students except our friend Iggy, and he's over here really not listening to Miss Greer. Ugh, he's building something over here on the table. It looks like he's using chalk. Does your teacher look like that? Does she have a bun on her head? Does she look similar to Miss Greer? I don't know. Well, that might seem severe. Did you think that that might seem severe? But it says that she was sincere. She really meant it. For when she was no more than 7, she had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group. Oh, have you ever gotten lost from your parents before? Isn't that scary? Do you know, that was how she felt. She was so scared, and she was only 7 years old, and they were in this huge skyscraper, and she got separated from her parents. Well, I kind of understand why she doesn't like to talk about architecture and all of that and buildings, because that's where she had that experience. All right, let's go on. She was found 2 days later in a stuck elevator. Whew, that's good. Yeah, she was found. And after that day, it's quite safe to say she thought all building lovers were nuts. And as a teacher, she taught that above all, one ought to avoid them. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, the writer here used something kind of special that you might use in your writing at some time or another. The writer in the book used something we call flashback. And if you notice, we saw Miss Greer, how she was at the very beginning, the teacher in grade 2. We saw her, and we noticed that we looked at her throwing away all of those books. And I want you to notice the little bun on top of her head, because that's a dead giveaway. And then when she began to tell of her experience that happened when she was 7, look how the illustrator made her have that same bun on her head so she'd be easy to spot. And that's what a flashback does. In Iggy Peck, the author uses a flashback to give you insight into why Miss Lila Greer wouldn't discuss buildings in her 2nd grade classroom. That's why she didn't want to do that, because she had been frightened so terribly when she was young. Does that kind of make sense? If you didn't know that, though, about Mrs. Greer, you might have thought Mrs. Greer was a mean old woman. Ooh, mean old teacher. But when we actually found out, she truly did, she did have a reason for why she was. Something to think about. Now, after that day, it said that she was, or it said that she was in the elevator with this circus troupe. I find that to be quite funny. In an elevator, stuck in an elevator with a bunch of circus performers. That might be terrifying in and of itself. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. So Iggy wasn't listening to Miss Greer tell her story about why she was so terrified. He was over there building. And it angered her. I want you to look at her body language. She's got that hand on her hip, and she's got that finger out, and she begins to scold Iggy. You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal How? Have you ever had to go see the principal? Is that scary? Some of our kids might have to go see the principal. Our principal, she's not really very scary. She's really pretty nice. We kind of like her. Her name is Mrs. T, in case you've forgotten. Oh, I want you to look at Iggy. Look at him really, really close. Iggy is really sad because I don't really think Iggy's a bad kid. I think he's really bright, but he just has a hard time listening. And he responded to Miss Greer very respectfully, and he said, "No, ma'am," Iggy said, and he lowered his head, and his heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now, second grade was a bore. Oh, I feel sorry for Iggy, but it got better. It said after 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. And oh, they're all stepping off going to the picnic until you get to the end of the line, and Iggy's dragging up the end of the line because he's just not very happy about second grade. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream. Now, let's think about that for a second. What in the world do you think a trestle would be? Well, if I use my context clues, I see that they crossed it, so it's something that you cross, and they cross it to get to an island. Now, what do you know about an island? An island is completely surrounded by what? By water. So when they cross this old trestle, a trestle must be a bridge. Yeah, it must be a bridge. And they crossed the bridge to an island. But as they did, they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed. And Miss Lila Greer started to scream. "We're trapped here! Oh my! Alas, kids, goodbye." And her eyeballs rolled back in her head, and she dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound. Luckily, she fainted. She wasn't dead. I'm glad. That's terrible. The class was amazed, and they stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan. Oh, who do you think it was? Which started with Miss Lila's shoe. So Iggy hatches this plan, and here's Iggy directing. He's standing on top of this little boulder and looks like he's doing some drawing or sketching in the dirt, and he gets all of the kids in his class involved, and he asks them to donate things. He's having some of them bring up wood, and some of them bring up little twigs, and they're all taking their shoestrings out of their shoes, and it looks like they're working there together. They're working as a team. And we know teamwork makes the dream work, right? And that's exactly what happened here. Soon, each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. Oh my goodness, look at what they completed. The kids now are on this side. Here's Miss Lila Greer over here on this side. She looked in the air and she saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces. And on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. 17, not 16 and Iggy. 17. Iggy's back in his element and smiling again. Boots and tree roots and strings, fruit roll-ups and things, some of which some should not mention. Get a load of the flag is somebody's underwear. were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge dangling from shoestring suspension. Iggy built a suspension bridge. Take a look at this. A suspension bridge is a bridge that has a deck suspended from cables, usually raised on towers. One of the most famous suspension bridges some of you may have visited before. Has anybody ever been to Royal Gorge Bridge in Cannon City, Colorado? Look at, if you can see the picture on my left, you can see the bridge. It spans about miles over the Arkansas River, and there the other picture on the other side kind of shows you the suspension, just like Iggy's bridge was, but instead of shoestrings, they've got big strong cables. I have one other photo for you to see. Look at that. That is looking from the bottom up, and I've actually walked across that bridge before. That's one that I've seen before, so that was a landmark that was kind of cool. Now, we'll finish up because thank goodness Iggy came to the rescue. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. I think Miss Lila Greer learned a lesson. I think Miss Lila Greer appreciated Iggy's strengths of learning. Now, every week at Blue River Creek Elementary in second grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. Oh, Iggy is showing you how all of these famous landmarks all around the world were built. The weekly guest speaker in t-shirt and sneakers talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course, he's the guy who builds towers from pie. That brilliant young man, Iggy Peck. Don't you just love Iggy Peck? Now, I thought it might be fun if we took some time and we built some polygons. Because remember, if you want to be an architect, you're probably going to have some good, strong math skills. And you're going to have to be able to put shapes together to build things. Because think of all the things that Iggy did in the book. Iggy was able to build a sphinx, and Iggy was able to build the arch out of pancakes. And all of those required him to be familiar with shapes. And right before school was out for spring break, we had begun to study geometry, which was the study of shapes. And we started with just the basics. We learned about lines and line segments, and then we moved on to polygons. And we talked about what a polygon was. A polygon being a closed shape with 3 or more straight lines. So that's what we talked about. And here were those basic polygons that we learned about right before we left for spring break. We talked about the triangle. Triangle has 3 sides. And then we talked about the rectangle. And we talked about the parallelogram. We talked about a pentagon, a hexagon, and an octagon. Mr. Trujillo, is that counter right? Okay. And these were the things that we talked about. So I thought, you know what? What might be fun is if we were Iggy and we built some sticky structures. And so what I got these at Walmart. They're called spice drops, but they're just little gumdrops. You might have some fruit chews at home that would work, or marshmallows that would work. And what I did was I just began to build polygons. And here was my triangle. You'll notice my 3 sides. Now, the shapes that I started with, I built a square. And all I did was I just took the toothpicks. I forgot to show you, I used toothpicks. I figure you probably knew that. And these were so fun. There was a lot more fun than I thought they would be. And I just built a structure. This is how I built a square, and you couldn't really mess it up. And I put it together. And you can do this at home, and it's really kind of fun, and they're really cute. I even ate gumdrop or two along the way. I'm not a fan of gumdrops. And there. See how I put it together? Look at this one. What do you think that is? That's the pentagon. See how it's got 5 sides to it? That's a pentagon. And then look at this one. Look at this one I did. That one, it has 8 sides. What was an 8-sided shape? Do you remember? It was an octagon. Now, I went a little further and decided, these are what we call 2-dimensional. Okay? Polygons are 2-dimensional shapes. I went a little further and I went to solid figures. And I took my square and look what happened. This is a 3-dimensional shape. But notice I still have that initial 4-sided shape. Look at that. Isn't that cool? This has dimension. This one is called a cube. These are the vertexes or the vertices. These are the corners. I want to show you one more because I'm just about to run out of time. Look at this one. Look at its faces. I have a square face here, but look at my faces on this side. Oh, I want to challenge you this week to get out there and be an Iggy Peck. And you might want to build some of these fun little simple polygons that we talked about or investigate solid figures. Build anything. I now have a Facebook page. Everybody got a Facebook page. So I got a Facebook page. Mrs. O's Facebook Fun is the name of my account. Get on there if you build something. If you build a sphinx, if you want to build a suspension bridge, I don't care what you want to build. Just be an Iggy Peck and have a good time doing it. I'll see you next week. Have a great day.
Hello, it's Mrs. Helbig again, and today we are going to be cooking with eggs. Our episode today is called Excellent Eggs, and we're going to start with a lemon meringue pie, and I'm going to begin by taking an egg and separating it. I've got this handy dandy little tool here to separate this egg. I already have 2 egg whites in my KitchenAid mixer so that I can Okay, this tool separates my egg white from my yolk. I'm just going to go ahead and put that egg white in there. Like I said, there's 2 other egg whites in there, and I'll just save this for another recipe later on. And begin this. Just get that egg white started to stir up. We want to just kind of form some bubbles in there and get going. And so while that's going, I'm going to talk about our pie crust. We ended last week with the pie crust. We were making the Play-Doh, and so we ended up making some pie dough at the very end of the lesson. So this is a 1 cup of flour, 1/3 cup of shortening, a little bit of salt, and then 1/3 cup of water. Roll it out, and then put it in your pan, and then bake it. I put holes in it so that it would stay nice and flat. I've already made the pie filling. This is, and I just went easy. I just did a Jell-O cook and serve lemon meringue, lemon pie filling. So it's the mix, some water, some sugar, and a couple of egg yolks. So I'm just going to mix that up. Go ahead and put this in my pie shell that's been baked and cooled. Okay, I'm just going to bring that around so it touches. There we go. Okay, and on our meringue today, we're using 3 eggs, and the eggs need to be at room temperature. And so far, we're doing a good job. The eggs are getting a little bit bubbly, and that's what we want. We want them to get a little bit bubbly. I'm going to keep going with that. All right, and I need 1/3 cup of sugar in my meringue, and then I'm going to use a pinch of cream of tartar. So let me get my 1/3 cup of sugar. Now, as we add this sugar to our meringue, we need to go really slowly. So I want to, yeah, it's looking good. I'm going to just put a little bit in at a time. Just go nice and slow with this. Wanted to say, too, that I've saw a lot of nice Play-Doh from you guys last week. A few of you made some really good-looking Play-Doh, and then quite a few of you made some really nice-looking Cheerio bars and Rice Krispie treats. So good job on hanging in there and getting some cooking done. I was proud of you. Just going to put my sugar in, like I said, a little bit at a time. And eggs form a lot of functions in cooking. Sometimes they're used as a leavening agent even. Their protein or their nutritional values, a really good, important part of their function. And then also they're a nice binding ingredient. I'm going to put a little bit, about a pinch of cream of tartar, just kind of as a stabilizer. Just a pinch. Okay, so while that's going, I'm going to wash my hands again. Remember to wash between your fingers, behind your hands, up the wrists. Wash your hands over and over and over again as you're cooking. The paper towel. Okay, so this meringue is going to need to be in the oven, so I'll put that on for 350. And while the meringue is mixing, we're going to go ahead and move to our deviled eggs. So I've boiled some eggs here. Carefully get those eggs out of the pan. I'm going to put those into this. Okay. Now, I'm going to put this over here to the side for just a second. And we'll go ahead and crack these eggs. I use the cold water method to boil my eggs. And that means that I put my eggs into some cold water in the pan. Make sure that the water is covering the eggs by about a half an inch to an inch. And then I just go ahead and put some, I'm going to put these back in here. And so I can rinse them off. Nice and warm. So I put the water on high. Once the water begins to boil, then I will turn the heat off and put the lid back on. And then I will just put my timer on for 20 minutes. It sets for 20 minutes. And do put some, let's see how we're doing back here. It's getting a little loud sounding. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to go just a little bit more because we do want stiff peaks. Okay. So, like I said, putting the salt on the eggs, I think really helps in the peeling process. You want to be real careful after I've got these all peeled. I'm going to go ahead and rinse them again and make sure I've got all the shells off. Eggs do roll, so I need to be careful. I've actually had to remind students of that after they landed on the floor. Okay. Well, that's a good question. I think that the best tip for getting the shells off easily, like they came off pretty easily today. Sometimes it's not. I think the salt helps, and like I said, I use that cold water method. Okay, this is looking fantastic, guys. We've got some nice stiff peaks. So let me go ahead and rinse these off. Make sure there's no shells left on here. Don't want any shells in our deviled eggs. We can help it. Yeah, there's one right there. Okay. I'm going to put these guys back in here. and let them sit for just a second while we get this meringue on, because we want to get the meringue and the pie in the oven. So we'll just change gears here for just a second. All right, take this off. All right, I am going to use 2 spoons to do this process. And I just want to spoon some meringue on my, now you can use any filling you like. If you don't like lemon filling and you like chocolate better, then you just go ahead and do this on chocolate, that's fine. Coconut cream, whatever. I'm just going to go around the edges like this and get the meringue kind of to touch a little bit of the crust so that hopefully it will not come away from the crust on us. Just carefully. So coconut cream, chocolate, the lemon, all of those are good choices for this meringue. And we're just going to put it in the oven. It's 350 for about 10 minutes just to get it toasty. We want it to look toasty brown on top. All right, our oven's 350. Good. I'm just going to go ahead and put the rest of that on top and smush it around. If you want to make cute little peaks, that's fine. I'm just going to move it around and make sure I've covered all the lemon filling. One hole left. There we go. Okay. So, like I said, you can make that have as much little peaks and valleys as you'd like. Okay. So, this is going in the oven. And we'll put the timer on for 10 minutes. All right. So, back to the deviled eggs. Let's put this in here. Wash my hands again. Got the sticky meringue on my fingers. Okay. So, most of the time when you're dealing with deviled eggs, the recipe is a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so, what I did the other day when I was practicing this is I actually measured everything. So, I know. Now, you'll notice that there's not a dark green ring around your egg yolk, and that's what you want. And like I said, the cold water method of now don't you slip away from me. The cold water method of boiling your egg, I think, works best. I do have another one of these pans, these deviled egg dishes. If this one doesn't want to cooperate. Okay. Yeah, these feel like they're going to slide right off of there. I may have to get the other one. All right. So I'm just cutting them with a sharp knife, getting the egg yolk out, setting the white on my serving dish. And I did this recipe for 6 eggs, but I boiled 1 extra just in case, because you never know. One's going to rip or what's going to happen. All right. So everybody cooperated nicely. So we'll just go with our 6. Okay. Next, I want to just smush this up. So I'm going to just take a fork and smush up my egg yolks. I'm going to add a little salt and pepper to this. Am I making you hungry?
I feel like I'm a dog.
Okay, you can take the eggs home. Families that like to put a little bit of dill or even sugar or something else in there. So whatever your family likes. Okay, good deal. So now it's time for the mayo. So I'm just gonna, as I was practicing, found out that I need 5 tablespoons for 6 eggs. So we know that 5 tablespoons half of a tablespoon of mustard. Okay, so 5 tablespoons of mayo and a half a tablespoon of mustard, salt and pepper, and then we just stir that up. So incorporate all those egg yolks into your mixture. Okay, so once I've got all this mixed up, then I'm just going to go back to my egg whites and fill them in. Now, you can do this real fancy and put this in a piping bag and make your egg yolk mixture nice and fancy. But I usually just do this. Egg yolk or deviled eggs are great for holidays. A lot of people like to use them for holidays, picnics. One thing you do need to know about deviled eggs is they should be served cold. So keep them cold if you're making deviled eggs for your family. Keep them cold in the refrigerator until you're ready to serve them. Okay, last one. All right. And I usually do a taste test, but we'll just assume that I got it right. Now, if I don't put paprika on it, my mother says they're not finished, so I got to put some paprika on them. I'm just going to barely just put a little bit of paprika on there. Now, if this was a serving dish that I was going to put on the table for for people to eat, I would either do more eggs and fill this center in, or I'd put in pickles or olives or some other cute something in there to make that an attractive tray of eggs. Okay, now next thing. Going to move my dirty dishes over, wash my hands again, get them wet because I have deviled egg goo all over them. And now let's look at the fun food that we have for this week. So each episode we'll have something to cook, something to make, but I'm also going to have a fun food. So today's fun food is a couple of animal things. We have ants on a log, and we have octopus hot dogs. So let's get this stuff over here so you can see better. So ants on a log, just a little bit of peanut butter. Now, last time I meant to say this with your Cheerio bars and with this, if someone is allergic to peanut butter, then you probably need to find an alternative. And a good alternative for this would be cream cheese. For the Cheerio bars, if somebody's allergic to peanut butter, I would just say leave out the peanut butter and make them more like a Rice Krispie treat with no peanut butter in them. So here's our log, and here are our ants. We're using raisins. You could use craisins. You could use chocolate chips, whatever you want. But there's our little ants on a log. And we have octopus. We have octopus hot dogs also. Let me get fork out here. Okay, I boiled these earlier today, this morning. 5 minutes. Okay, whoops. Now you guys are rushing me. Whew. Okay. So that's what an octopus hot dog looks like. Okay, so let's move over to our sewing project for this week, and that is a lined bag. So I've got 2 examples of a lined bag here, and the first one is just plain material. So you've got keep your books and your crayons or whatever. So it's just a reversible bag. It takes. We got our pie. We got to get reversible bag. Then let's check that pie. Looking fantastic. Let's get that out of there. All right, turn off our oven. So here we go with our pie. Got our deviled eggs. There's our lemon meringue pie, and we're just going to let that cool and put it in the refrigerator. So one more time, I don't want to forget the bonus questions for today. What do these things mean? We've been talking about eggs. What does it mean to say don't put all your eggs in one basket? What does it mean when someone says he's an egghead? And what does it mean you cannot unscramble eggs? What do those things mean? You put that on your RSU TV form. One other thing about the sewing project, this is another bag I made, but I want to talk about the type of material that I put. This is called crumb quilting. So what you do is you just take all of your scraps and you start sewing them together into make a piece of material basically. This one's 16 by 18 for the front and the back, and then I lined it with the blue material like the strap. Okay, as a review, just because we want to get this, I'm going to make this for Mr. Osborne. A review, omelets. Got a half a tablespoon of margarine, and if we have to go away before I get this finished, thanks for watching. Come back next week, and we'll do some more cooking. But review for the omelet, saute your vegetables and your meats. Then take that off. Okay, take that off of the heat, and then you'll put in your egg liquid. scramble these up really well. As soon as your meat and your eggs, or excuse me, as soon as your meat and your vegetables are sauteed, like I said, just put them off on the plate. And then you'll cook your egg. Remember, as we were cooking our egg, we let it get cooked around the edge, and we just kept pushing it back and pushing it back until we could get all the liquid off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to saute this meat and vegetables on another skillet afterwards. I'm going to do just the egg part right now. And like I said, if you need to leave before I get this all finished, that's fine. That's fine. We'll go ahead and start this, and then you can leave. But I'm going to put my egg in here. And I promise I'll saute those things for you for your omelet. I'm going to cook this on medium heat, and as it's getting done around the edges, I'm just going to push back and continue to do that and make sure all the egg liquid gets cooked. I'm just going to keep pushing it back, pushing it back. It's okay for it to be a little shiny, but you don't want any runny egg on top of your omelet. So we will finish this. I'll let Mr. Osborne have it for his early lunch today. Thank you for coming. If you've got any questions, just email me. You can get a hold of me at rochelle.helbig@sequoiaeagles.net. Thank you for watching.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning back in again this week. My name is Owen Hosick. I'm the agriculture education instructor and FFA advisor here at Sequoyah Public Schools. Housekeeping thing before we get going. They're doing a kind of a live chat on the YouTube link. So if you go to RSU TV, their YouTube channel would be on there. Just think of it kind of like a little conversation, and let the conversation begin on there. Today we're going to be talking. This is actually perfect. This is kind of how worlds can collide sometimes. Ms. Helbig just taught you some things about some deviled eggs and finished up with an omelet. Well, ironically, without either one of us actually communicating, we're going to talk about eggs. And so it's perfect, right? And so she told you how to make them delicious. I'm going to tell you how they get to your house. And hopefully it's exciting. Moving on. Okay. So egg production in the United States, when you look at the actual numbers, they can be quite astonishing. So 99.1 billion eggs were produced in the United States in 2019. So that is a ton of eggs. But if you think about it, supermarkets across the store or across the nation, right, or any other kind of store that carries eggs seems to always have them, and they have a bunch, right? And so the consumer demand for eggs is quite large, and we use them in a wide variety of products, whether that's any of those things Ms. Helbig just talked about or others. They're definitely a staple food in the United States. The top 10 states as far as number of laying hens, so that is hens that are actually going to produce eggs. Oklahoma is not one of them, but we're surrounded by number 9 and number 5, 9 in Arkansas, 5 in Texas. And then you can kind of see on the map there some of those other states. Iowa, the number one egg producer as far as number of eggs produced, right there. Okay. Hens become mature enough to lay an egg about 6 months of age, and so that can be give or take a couple weeks, depending on the breed, depending on the environmental conditions, so time of year, their diet, those kinds of things. But usually around 6 months is when they're going to start laying. And those first couple of eggs are going to be abnormal. So basically, the chicken's body is learning how to produce an egg and how to go through that process. A typical hen will lay about 1 egg every 24 hours and will occasionally skip a day. Okay. As time has gone on through the genetic improvement of laying chickens, okay, we have increased the number of eggs per year that they can produce. So in the early 1900s, a average layer would lay about 120 eggs or 1 egg every 3 days. And so now currently, right, an average hen will lay about 300 eggs per year, which comes out to 1.21 per day, right? So 365 days in a year. We're basically looking at an egg per day, give or take. Our wonderful friends at Purina put out this graphic. Basically, if there is,
what chicken breed produces the most eggs?
No idea. You tell me.
I don't know.
Okay, I don't either. The question was, what chicken breed produces the most eggs? I have no idea. Google it. But some tips. Some tips for to have a productive chicken is basically going to come with a complete feed. So they're getting all the essential vitamins, minerals, proteins, and things that their body needs to be able to have the egg white form and the shell and the membranes and all those other fun parts of an egg that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. And then a lot of egg production is light is a large factor in that. So the amount of light that chicken is exposed to per day can also determine how productive they are. Okay, so here's just kind of the general process. Okay, so we have this whole thing starts with the chicken laying an egg, right? Which, who came first? I don't know. So the chicken lays an egg. It's then collected. They're then inspected and packaged. So they're sorted based on grade and size, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, as well as some things you can kind of do at home to see. Then they're going to be washed and sanitized with water about 115 to 120 degrees. They have like these little soft brushes that can help remove material that you wouldn't want on the shell. So that way when you open your carton of eggs in the store to check them before you go up to the cash register, because if you don't, then you get home and you have a bunch of cracked eggs and then your wife yells at you. But then they're washed and then they're transported throughout the United States. And so typically an egg that you get from the supermarket, if you can find them at this time of year or in this situation, was usually laid a week to a week and a half ago. And so keeping them fresh is something that's important to prevent things like spoilage, but also disease and things like that. And so an egg, if you look on your package, okay, this is a extra large egg, grade A from Wally World. It says right here, keep refrigerated at or below 45 degrees. And that 45 degree temperature is kind of the magic mark for those eggs to have longevity as far as storage is concerned. So when they're shipped out on refrigerated trucks, they're kept well below that 45 degree mark. Okay, so if you've ever looked at a carton of eggs, and so on this one, see, Chris, is that seeable? It's like right here. That says grade A eggs, and there's this cool little logo that kind of looks like like a highway or an interstate sign. And that basically is a grade that the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, will assign to basically the quality of what is inside of the shell will be determined. Okay, and so we can have AA, which is the best. We have a grade A, okay, which is in the middle, and then we have B. So B being the lowest grade of egg, that's going to be they're going to be the least desirable for consumers. They're going to be the least attractive. Kind of sounds weird to say about an egg, but it would be. You're going to have things like cracks in the shell. You could have yolks are going to be kind of wide and flat, or maybe real runny or not fully formed. And then as we go up the scale, those things won't happen, right? You'll have a high firm yolk. You'll have your egg whites are going to be intact, and then as we go up to grade AA, that's basically a pristine egg. So usually there's a cost difference. Okay, so between these, so a dozen of grade B eggs is going to cost less than A or even a AA. Okay, so A is definitely adequate for cooking and all those things. That's usually what we end up with, and that's where the majority of eggs produced are going to fall in that grade A. Okay, the other way they're classified is by their size, and so it's not the actual size of the egg itself, but it's going to be the weight per dozen. So there's 12. A dozen is 12. Okay, so in a group of 12 eggs, how much do they weigh will determine how they're labeled. And so on our carton again, right, we can see these right here. So this was an 18. There was 18 eggs in this particular packaging, but over here it says extra large white. So 12 eggs out of this carton should weigh approximately 27 ounces, and that is what we're going to test here today on our magic scale. And so if you read it on here, it says the net weight is 40.5 ounces. So basically, if we do the math, so if we divide 27 by a dozen or 12, right? Each egg should weigh roughly 2.25 ounces. So if we just increase that to 18 eggs, then we'll be right at 40.5. And so when these are weighed, they're not actually USDA certified, right? So the producers and the packagers that are going to put them all together are actually on the hook for making sure that the information that they put on their packaging or their egg carton is accurate. Okay, and so we just have, I got 12 eggs here. There's 2, 4, 6, and I did something wrong, right? Forgot to tear off the weight of the bowl. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. And what do you know? We're at 27.2 ounces. So we're right on that extra large, labeling. So shout out to Great Value Eggs for packaging appropriately and correctly. So if you're looking at a recipe, and it says 2 eggs, okay, most of the time that is going off of using a large egg. So instead of 2.25 ounces, right, that may be closer to 2 ounces or a little bit less. So depending on variance or how specific that recipe needs to be, if you use an egg out of a jumbo carton or out of a small carton, your recipe could be off, right? Your results could vary could vary on that recipe. It's important to know that not all the eggs will be the exact same size, but they're going to be close. So within our carton of eggs, there may be some variance. So we may have some that are 2.5 ounces. We may have one that's 2 ounces. But when it's all put together, the aggregate of that will be around 27 ounces. Okay, so if you've ever cracked an egg, right, usually you look and you say, okay, we've got the shell, we've got the egg white, and then we've got the yolk, right, the big yellow thing, the globe that's kind of floating in there. Those are kind of the 3 that we typically think of, but there's actually a bunch of different components, okay, to the egg itself that all serve an essential form and function. I think this is an important time to talk about the fact that the eggs that you get from a grocery store are not fertilized. So you're not going to crack open an egg. There's not going to be like a little chick in there. They're all unfertilized, but it has all of the components inside of the egg to where if there was a growing and developing embryo, it would have all the things that it needs to survive, right? And so birds, reptiles lay eggs, right? Mammals don't, right? So mammals have all the things inside of the female animal that that embryo needs to grow and develop. Whereas if you think about this as like a portable mom, right? It's got all of the things inside of there that the embryo is going to need to survive, grow, and develop. And then whenever it hatches, right, can be a live chicken running around or bird or whatever it might be. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is the shell. Okay, the shell is its main purpose, okay, is to protect, right, the contents that are inside of the egg. Think of it like wearing a helmet whenever you're riding a bicycle or skateboarding or whatever it is you do to constitute wearing a helmet. It provides protection from impacts. However, it is not a solid sheet that surrounds it. It's porous, and it's going to allow gas exchange and moisture to kind of pass through in different at different parts of it. Okay, and so one cool thing you can do at home, you can go touch all the eggs before you use them for cooking. It's called candling, and candling is basically the process of holding a light up under an egg. And you can observe a couple of different things inside of the egg to determine quality as well as the condition that the hen was in whenever she laid the egg. Okay, so we're going to try to do this on camera. It may turn out to be a little wonky, but we'll see. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm getting my flashlight out, and Miss Bacon is going to so kindly turn the light off. Okay. Chris, are we in kind of frame here? Right here? Yep. Okay, so if we take our light on our iPhone 6000 here, we can hold it up under the egg, and we can see all of those pores in the eggshell. And so that's called mottling. And depending on the amount of mottling will determine a couple of different things. It can be the structural integrity of the egg, and how that's caused is by the diet of the hen. So there's a protein matrix that holds all the calcium within the shell together. And so if the hen is not getting enough protein, I should have definitely cut my nails before I did this. That's some little behind the curtain stuff there. But if she didn't have enough protein in her diet, okay, this egg can be a little bit more porous. And so as the screen comes back on here in a second, we can see a graphic of different stages of modeling. So the one we did, just kind of comparing, right, would be somewhere right here. Okay, 4 on this side, and we can turn the big light back on. We'll turn them off here again in a second when we talk about the air cell. Hopefully, if we have time. The lesser amount of those little porous spots, okay, those thin spots in the shell, the better. So you could tell this hen over here was probably on a complete feed, had all the things that she needed to really produce a good shell, right? Whereas this one over here on this side, where it kind of looks like the sun, really. That hen may not have had adequate nutrition, but her body was still continuing to lay eggs, and so that shell, right, may be a little thinner than some over here. And again, it's kind of a progressive thing, and it's not to say that these eggs are necessarily bad. They're just more susceptible to. Thank you, Brody, for that text. I should have turned my watch off before this. That hen may have some nutritional deficiencies as compared to these two, and that's something you can try at home and can kind of categorize where your eggs are at. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crack an egg. Okay, I'm going to try not to make a mess. So inside of the shell are going to be 2 membranes, and what those membranes do is basically act as a sealer or a barrier from the outside world to the inner parts of the egg. I'm going to try to peel this carefully. And so, is that in frame right there, Chris? Okay. So if I take one of these little pieces here, I can start to peel this, and inside, right, is going to be the membrane. And so there's an inner and an outer membrane. They're stuck together, and without different equipment than my fingernail, we wouldn't be able to pull them apart. But this membrane, the purpose is basically to keep things like bacteria out from the inside of the egg. Fun fact, way back in the day, these could be used as bandages because of their ability not to let bacteria and other things get through. And so I don't recommend next time you cut yourself to go crack an egg and put the membrane on there. That's like some way back in the day kind of stuff. And we only have about 6 minutes left, so we're going to have to kind of hurry here. Okay, another part of the egg is going to be the air cell. And so inside of that membrane, there's going to be a small pocket of air. And what that acts is basically like an airbag to protect the egg from the embryo inside of it, to protect it from falling. And so, Jennifer, if we can hit those lights one more time. This is another thing by candling that you can see. Hopefully, you see that there, Chris, where the colors change right there at the very bottom? Okay, so that white part right at the very bottom of the egg is going to be the air cell, and we can see how it's a lot lighter, and then as it gets tall, as we go up the egg, right, it becomes kind of a yellowish color. That white part down at the bottom is going to be the air cell, okay? And so think about that like the, Jennifer, you can turn the light back on. Not to boss you around, but that's going to protect the egg from falls and collisions. And so how that's created is there's a temperature differential inside of the hen versus the outside environment. And so when that egg falls out, there's some physics that happen, and air basically gets pulled in really fast, and it creates that pocket. Okay, so the albumin, or you probably call it the egg white, also consists of some different layers, but for our purposes here, we're going to talk just about it as one. And so that's going to be the liquid medium that the embryo, is going to develop in. It's going to be high in protein. Think about it like, what's a good analogy? Like you have the little balls with the squishy, squish them and like the little eyeballs pop out. Well, that little gel that's inside of there basically acts as a padding, similar thing that's happening here inside of the egg itself. That was a horrible analogy. But okay, so it's basically a liquid that's going to protect the growing embryo. So I'm going to kind of spoil Miss Helbig's "you can't unscramble an egg" question. And so because this is made up of protein, whenever it gets heated up, so you crack it, you put it in a skillet, and it starts to get hot, right? What that's called is denaturing. And as those proteins denature, their structure, right, which is usually kind of organized, just freaks out and starts making all these random bonds everywhere else. And so through that process, basically you can't then undo that process. So you can't essentially unscramble an egg. So don't tell her I told you that, and you get your bonus points. Okay. All right. So the yolk is the big yellowish, orangish globe, right? Structure that is going to be in the middle of the egg itself. Okay. And that's going to be the source of food for the embryo. And it's going to contain mostly fats, right? So fat is high energy. So as that embryo is developing and forming things like organs that it needs to survive and all the essential physiological structures, okay, it's going to rely on that source of fat to grow and develop. And that's why if you had a fertilized egg with an embryo in it and it was closer to hatching and you cracked it, right, you wouldn't see this big orangish yellow globe, right, because it's being consumed. Okay, so the chalaza is kind of hard to see. If we look at our fantastic egg here, as I go up and I try to tilt without spilling an egg on Mr. Osborne. We good there?
Yeah.
Okay, so this white, almost hair-like structure right here is going to be the chalaza, and what that the purpose of that is to basically keep that yolk suspended in the middle of the egg. And so if you think about if you had a soccer ball with two bungee cords, one going out of the North Pole, one going to the South Pole, and tied to the floor and the ceiling, right? Even if you hit that ball, right, it would kind of move back and forth, but it wouldn't go really up or really down, right? It would be kind of kept taut right in the middle, and that's the purpose. Okay, I mean, it's basically just twisted strands of that albumin. Okay, this is going to be basically impossible to see on camera, so we're just going to talk about it on here, and even my picture on there is not really great. But if you look on the yolk, and if you try this at home, this is something you can definitely see, is if you look on the yolk, there's going to be a small, darkish disc, and what that's called is the germinal disc. And if I'm looking on here, there's kind of a whitish gray spot. You probably won't even be able to see it, but it's basically right here. Anyways, what happens is that is the location of fertilization. So if this egg was going to be fertilized, that is where both sets of genetic material would be located, and that's where the embryo would go from some cells and develop and become a baby chicken. Okay. That is the short and dirty of it. Was there any questions on there, guys? Next week, utilize that YouTube chat feature. Okay, we want to try to make this as interactive as we possibly can, and that is one good way to do this. Okay, I think since we have maybe a little bit extra time, Chris, let's try to adjust the camera right here. Okay, can you see the yolk?
Yeah. Is it on the far side? Yeah.
It is right there. So right here where my pointer 4000 is pointing here, this bendy straw, right there is going to be the germinal disc. Okay, there's going to be a kind of a solidified layer on the outside of the yolk that's going to contain kind of those fats and proteins. And so eggs are kind of a perfect food in the fact that they have proteins, they have fats, they have a lot of those things that people need and other animals need as well to be able to grow and develop. And so definitely try some of those recipes Miss Helbig was doing when she was cooking. The omelet smelled absolutely delicious. No more questions. Okay, guys, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, or because I know you just sit around and think about this 30 minutes with me all the time. It's owen.hosick@sequoiaeagles.net. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, sudden emotional outbursts, animal noises. I always say that in class, and the kids usually just somebody will make a sound. But hope everybody is doing all right. Wash your hands, and that's all I got. How much more time do we have?
Good morning. Welcome back to Middle School Science. My name is Mr. Paul, and we're going to do something different today. Something today we're going to do you can't do at home as our last projects, but it's going to be interesting. So we're going to start with the PowerPoint. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to focus on just what we're doing today. No PowerPoint today. But I want to shout out the Sequoyah teachers that have done a fabulous job today. I learned how to draw a cat, Pete the cat, to be honest. I remember now how to do my haikus properly. I got some great cooking lessons, which everyone needs. And then we finished with eggs. This is perfect. So we're going to move in today some anatomy. So one of my favorite lessons to teach in 6th grade. Oh, by the way, Mr. Paul again. I apologize. I missed that part. So one of my favorite lessons to teach middle schoolers is anatomy. Now we focus on the different systems, bones, arteries. And then at the end, we do this really good project where everyone has something they could do hands-on. So you want to take a guess what it is? If my 6th graders know, well, here we go. So we're going to dissect a frog today. It's a beautiful specimen. So what we're going to need is some scissors, some tweezers, a probe, and a scalpel. And of course, I'm wearing my gloves. I know Miss Keeler was proud last week with her squid and no gloves, but I'm going to today. So the very first thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the exterior anatomy of this frog. We're going to make some key observations and notice some differences from our anatomy compared to it. So the very first thing is we're going to look at is we have the dorsal, which is the upper part of the frog, which is very dark. And then we have the versal, which is underneath the bottom belly of the frog. So as we go through here and look, we're going to notice some neat key differences. Now, it has some awesome webbed feet that spread really far apart. Obviously, this helps make it swim, allows it to glide through its aquatic life. Now, as you move up, we have these really, really muscular legs. This is what helps allow it to jump really far as it reflexes and then goes back in, as it swings all the way out, goes back in. Okay, now we're going to flip over, and then we're going to come back and talk about the front part of the anatomy in a second. So if you notice, the bottom part is very light. I wonder why this is. Dark on the dorsal, light on the ventral. This is actually an adaptation of the frog so that when it's above the water systems or on the banks, that it's dark so it blends in. This helps it survive for many of its predators like snakes, birds, or anything like that, where the underside is not. Okay, so as we move closer to the front, I'm going to pull my probe out so we can look at some stuff. So we're going to notice one difference here right off the bat, the eyes. The eyes have this membrane that goes right over the top of it. And that has 2 major functions. The first major function is so that it's when it's swimming underwater that it protects the eye. The second function of this is if anything comes in the eye, just like when we blink, it helps remove it because it's not going to be able to remove something out of its eye. So this helps it remove it from the eye. Now, this, as we move down, you're going to notice that it doesn't have ears either. Now, it's really important because since it's an aquatic animal, an amphibian, and it's in the water, if it has an open hole, as our ear systems do, that go down to the eardrum, water would come in. So this one actually has a membrane that goes over it called a tympanic membrane. Now, this membrane fully covers the canal, but it allows it to hear when it's above the water and below the water, which is very important for a species like an amphibian. Now, we're going to flip it over. As we go down the body, you're going to notice that its anatomy is a little bit different here also. Whereas a frog does not show how it's a male or female just by looking at it. The first thing you notice is a costal. It has one hole right here on the backside. Now, I'm going to make a joke. You're going to probably call it an anus. We're going to laugh about it. Yes, my kids in my class do the same thing. That's all good. In middle school, you got to love them. In saying that, though, this hole applies for many different things. It allows to get rid of solid bile, liquid, and it also plays a very major role in reproduction system, as in eggs and sperm come from the same spot. Completely different from the male and female anatomy. Now, we're also going to go up here, And you know these beautiful 4 digits, unlike ours. Now with the male and female, we can also tell the sex of the frog by looking at the palm. Now to me, this one looks right off the bat, has a beautiful, nice pad right here, very thick. Now typically the thicker the pad here on this digit, you can tell if it's a male or female. So I'm going to go ahead and presume that it's a male. We're going to see if I'm right soon enough. So before we go in and dissect any of the frog, we're going to start and go to the front of the mouth. Now, this beautiful thing right here clamps down, if you can see it already on my hand. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut the sides of the jawbone. Now, if you're really quiet and listening at home, you're going to hear the snap of the bone as I cut. Oh. Nope. Let's try this. Let's go with the scalpel. Oh, right there. Again, they heard the glass shattering last week, so well, we'll see. Oh, now if you notice, this frog has also been sitting in this preservatives back there, so it just shot juice all over me. So the unfortunate problem about that is my clothes is going to stink even after I wash them for the next couple times. But anyways, this allows us to open up this beautiful mouth right here. I'm going to be spinning my tray around quite a bit, so don't get dizzy. So if you notice in the tray, the first thing that you notice right off the bat is its beautiful tongue. Now when it comes to get prey, the tongue is going to come out, flip out, catch the prey, and it's going to clamp. And then it's going to slide it back in. But if you notice right here, the tongue is at the very front of the frog's mouth, whereas our tongues are connected at the back. And it's also flips it in for the prey. Now another thing you're going to notice right off the bat is its teeth. Our teeth extrude very, very well, whereas this frog's does not. You're going to also notice that if we get underneath right here, maybe I can show you really well, that it's almost like a jawbone. The teeth are so small because they play a different role from what we use. Now we use our molars and canines to chop up our food, whereas a frog, primary purpose of its teeth is to clamp. So the first part is to pull in, say a fly, and then the teeth are going to clamp. This is to make sure that it does not escape. Now after that, it's going to push it down its esophagus and into his stomach. Now, obviously, it does not chew its food, so the stomach plays a major role in breaking apart the food and pulling the nutrition from it. So we have no teeth out here, but you'll also see 2 more right here that help clamp. So it does not chew its food at all. Another thing you're going to see is you have 2 tubes on each side right here. Now I'm going to flip my cheat sheet over here, because some of these vocabulary words are pretty big, and I seem to forget them. So, the eustachian tubes are on the left and right side. Now, this does not play a part in digestive. This actually helps release pressure on the tributary or the ear canalings right here on the sides. So, last little look before we go in. Then we're going to go back down here. So now we're going to do our first part into actually dissecting the frog. Now, typically, this is where I have my students pin the frog down so it's easier for you to get into, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut everything apart with my hands and move it and show you so it's easier for the camera to see. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go right above his leggings and we're going to cut sideways. Now you want to be very gentle because there's 2 different layers here. Now the first layer is very thin sheet of skin that comes across it. Now the scalpel is very, very sharp, so it's going to cut. Now, the first thing I'm going to look at before I go into the internal organs I didn't grab scissors over there, I grabbed a clamp. So, the very first thing right here as we get into the internals is we have his upper leg muscle. Now, in saying that, if you notice, these are very beefy. I mean, you're almost looking at like a major athlete's strength here. Now, we all noticed that a frog can jump really, really far, and this is the main reason for it. this beautiful muscle is striated, and if you look really closely, you can see the different striations as it goes down all the way through. Now, also a response to having amazing leg muscles that has the ability to jump really far is it has to have a vertebral column that helps support it. So again, that has a lot of cartilage that goes into it, so when it lands that it won't have any issues later in its life. Okay, so the next thing is I'm going to cut all the way up to its mouth. We're going to cut all the way up. This helps remove and make it easier to see the things across. Now, if I'd have grabbed my scissors instead of the clamp over there, it would have been a lot easier, but that's okay. Let's just hope I don't cut into the muscle yet. Huh? No, that's all right. I can use a scalpel. So the very first thing we're going to do is getting into the upper internal organs is we're going to cut the skin through and flap over. Now, unfortunately, this specimen, they didn't use a dye kit when they helped preserve it. So typically, if they do a really good dye kit, you're going to see the major veins that go through the skin layers. Now, the reason for that is because a frog gets oxygen in different ways. Actually, 70–80% of its consumption of gases or oxygen comes from its skin. Unlike us, where we use our lungs for our primaries to get oxygen in and to get it out. They use their skin. So this is how they excrete and internalize oxygen. It's really nice. Makes it really easy for them. Now, if you notice down here, as we went to the striated muscle down here, you're going to see this beautiful stomach abdominal muscles. You can see some of the striation across also as it goes down. Now, again, since I'm using a scalpel, I got to be very, very gentle as I cut through this muscle. Because if I cut too deep, I'm going to cut some of the organs up. And that's the last thing I want to do, especially since I want to pull them out and show you and explain what they do. Now, see if I can do this without cutting through the organs. So I'm going to have to do it a couple times, nice and slow. Hey, Brady. Hope you're having a good day. And hopefully you cooked some of the food that I seen earlier since you've been hitting the Google Classroom up lately with all the food ideas. Burning macaroni and cheese. So let's try the food today. Especially right after we watch a frog being dissected. Again, this is going to take me a few tries because typically I want to cut through this with some scissors. So since I'm using my scalpel, I want to be very precise because I will destroy the stomach and the liver, which is protruding at the very top. Oh man, hear that beautiful sound? If you can't hear it, I'm sorry. It's the nice cracking of cartilage and bones and some tissue that's going through right now. Oh, my camera woman is just loving this right now. Okay, so I made it through without cutting any of that beautiful organ system right there, especially the liver because it's very large and it's extruding at the very front. So I'm going to flip it one more time so I don't cut my finger off right here. Again, do not do this at home. Do not go to the pond and steal a frog. Do not go into your mother's kitchen and use her knives to cut up a frog in her kitchen. First, it's unsafe. Second of all, she's going to be very upset if she has to walk into her kitchen and there's organs and guts all over her kitchen. And that poor frog doesn't deserve it either, just to let you know. These frogs are from a company. So, all right, we made it through. So now I got to go to this last part of the muscle. We're going to cut down. Oh, did I say this frog was a male earlier? Or did I say it was a female? I said it was a male. Now, I was wrong. I'll show you exactly why I was wrong in a second. So, oh, there we go. Look at that beautiful stuff. It's just beautiful. Okay, so this is why I'm wrong. If you notice, the salt and pepper right here, these salt and pepper like organ structures right here, they're actually not organs. They're actually an abundance of female eggs. So when I said earlier that this was a beautiful pad, I was wrong. It's actually quite small. I like to do that sometimes just to see where you guys think also. So in my classroom, I like to be wrong just to see if someone can prove me the other way, especially when their thinking is different. Now in saying that, These are beautiful. It kind of goes back to the apparently the role of high school today. We had beautiful eggs being cooked earlier through deviled eggs, and then we had our ag teacher talk about eggs. Oh, see? Now we're just going to continue. Now I'm going to remove these eggs because they're going to cause a problem for us to see the internal organs in a minute. So this is one side. This is what she's going to produce at one time. That is a lot of eggs. The only problem is only about this percentage of eggs will actually make it to the past the gestational period and actually produce and actually become tadpoles. The problem is because most predators are going to consume this right up because frogs lay their eggs and leave. So bam, that's a beautiful long, that's a lot of eggs right there. Now we're going to go over here and we're going to pull out the other side. It is an egg theme day. I was actually talking to our teacher right before this, and she goes, I hope it's a female so you can talk about eggs. That's perfect. So, man, look at that. That is a lot of eggs. But unfortunately, like I said, a very little percentage of this will actually make it to tadpole stage because they will be consumed by other predators. Now, look how much easier that is to fill and look into the organ systems. Now, we're going to get rid of one more tubes. We're going to get rid of the female reproductive system right here. These are almost like our fallopian tubes, but they're tubes for the eggs. So it's a female part that helps with the reproduction system. Now we're just going to tear these out right off the bat. Some people wait till later, but it just makes it easier if I get rid of them right now. Look at the different integrations. Almost looks like the striated muscles down there as it flips through the tubing systems, but it's beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. Oh man, the sounds are just amazing. Miss Bacon might not be eating after this. Look at that. Almost kind of feels like the brain if you've ever opened a pig brain up. It kind of has the same texture. Okay, now the first thing that we're going to pull out past those reproductive systems is we're going to get in here and you're going to notice right off the bat you got these beautiful 3 lobes of the liver. They're very large because they have a lot of work to do. They help they help clean our systems, and then they're going to move that bile into the pancreas right here. This pancreas right here is a little bitty sac. It's actually hollow. It's actually very empty right now, obviously, because it's been in some chemicals. But that's the pancreas. It's beautiful. Now, as we go further down, you're going to see this big old stomach right here. This is a very hearty stomach. And the reason for it is because since the frog consumes everything whole, it's got to be able to expand. And when we open it up in a minute, you're going to see some lines in the actual stomach that allows for it to little bitty flap. So when the frog has to expand its stomach, say it's a huge horsefly, it needs the room in there so it pushes it out. So those folds actually help allow the stomach to expand. And then you're going to go down in here. Then you have the attachment of the small intestine. That goes all the way through here. All that is the beautiful, beautiful small intestine. And then we move into the large intestine. Now, if you notice, the large intestine's actually, and lengthwise, is very small compared to the small intestine. One of my first questions I always get, well, that doesn't make any sense. Then why do they call that the large intestine and this is the small intestine? That's because of diameter. The large intestine is much larger in diameter than the small intestine, even though the small intestine has a lot longer length. So what we're going to do before we go any upper into the heart or the lungs or anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and remove this stomach intestines. It's one of my favorite things to do. Now, sometimes you'll see claws in here. Sometimes you'll see worms. Sometimes you'll see parts of a small lizard, a fly, and then sometimes you just have some moss or anything like that. So we're going to move it out. I'm going to pull this all the way down. I'm going to remove some of this amazing tissue that helps connect the organ systems all the way down from the stomach to the small intestines to the large intestines to the caucus. So there's that. I'm going to cut this tissue up a little bit just to show you the kind of the length of it. Look at that. Just stretches all the way out. Just think, that was actually in the frog as its intestinal. And if you look and lengthwise, it's already longer than the actual frog itself. It's pretty cool. So here we go. Let's cut into the stomach. Now hopefully we get something good in here. Hopefully I don't cut my finger. All right. Guess in the comments and see if you know what's in there before I do it. Let's find out. 30 seconds behind me. Oh, yes. Okay, so he, or she, I apologize, has got quite a bit in her stomach. So she had a final meal before she was preserved. And saying that, looks like I have some beetle parts in there. You can see the actual exterior shell of a beetle on my finger right there. I know it's probably pretty hard for you to see on that. Let's see. It looks like there might be a worm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You can see the digits of a beetle. It looks like he had a few in there. Now maybe a little bit of sticks and stuff like that that came with it. But that is awesome. Full of stomach contents right there. Now I'm going to leave that to the side. We're going to go on to the next thing. Now, since these liver lobes are very large, they kind of make it hard to see the heart and a few other organs that are right here through the tissue. So what I'm going to do, and I'm really bad about this, so I only got one out full last year, one time. So let's see if I can beat that this time. Here we go. Oh, don't cut the heart. Oh, Kaylee Rye loved to do it in class when she had to. So don't let her ooze. Okay, so here's the beautiful lobes. 3. Now, typically, her lobes are actually a little bit small, especially for proportionate. Sometimes, especially with males, they're going to be very large and hold up the entire top of the chest cavity. That almost messed me up. The chest cavity. So hers are a little bit smaller, but it's still very distinguishable and beautiful. Very nice. Okay, so up here, we're going to go to the very, very top. Now, hopefully we can see really good right there. I'm going to come up a little bit. You're going to see the heart right there. That's beautiful. You're going to see some major arteries and small veins that attach to it through here. Now, the frog's heart is a 3-chamber heart, so you're going to see all of it right there. Yeah, it's right here. That's that right there. All the way through there. Right below that are 2 lungs. Now, if you notice, especially compared to us, their lungs are very small. But again, like I said earlier, about 70% of the gases exchange that comes through a frog actually comes through the skin. So their lungs are going to be quite small because they don't use them as much. But it's beautiful. Look at that. I'm going to pull this heart out. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to go up here and go all the way around it so maybe that I can get some of the ventral veins and the arteries that go along. Go ahead and cut below the lung, right above the lungs. There we go. Got some more of the sac that came with it. So there's the heart. And on the other side, you have your chambers, 3, the veins that go out. I know it's probably hard to see through the camera, much easier if you were in person. The 2 sacs below it are the lungs. They're very textured, finding Grady feeling like sand. And it goes through right there. Okay, put that on the side. Now, the one thing that I did not see very well was the the pancreas, which was up top. The gallbladder came out beautifully with the liver, but the pancreas up top was a little, I don't know if it was fully formed. It's most likely this tissue in here, a little bit of aspects of it. It's going to be up here in the tissue, not very well noticeable though, but as we go through here, you can notice the frog is completely pulled out. Now, we have the beautiful liver up here. Now, typically, like I said earlier, if they were dyed really well, you would see these very nicely. Right here, you have the kidneys on each side of the vertebral column. You have a beautiful kidney right here. And if they would have dyed them, they would have been much blacker, so they've been really easy to see. But these are a little bit more tan and brown, but you can see the tissue that's around them and moving through. Okay, it's beautiful. Now, typically in class, we have about 45 minutes to go through all this, so we have a lot more time. So unfortunately, I know I moved through it quickly, but I just wanted to show you guys some stuff, especially since we've had to miss a couple months of actually being in class. This actually gets to see you of some of the anatomy that goes on with the frog. Now, first, I hope you've loved the frog today. Now, I'm going to eat lunch right after this because, you know, it's an amazing time to do that. Like I said, as Miss Bacon over there is sitting like, no. She's probably happy that she stole an egg earlier from the home ec teacher. Yeah, stole on camera. So, again, I will be back next week at 11 Thursday on Tuesday for the next couple weeks. I hope you've enjoyed our dissection of a frog. I know it was quick, but I hope you've learned a little bit today. Have a great day.